Alrighty then, here I sit in my office, and not with any good hair at all, looking like a lunatic. But now, okay, I intentionally watched the debate and then refused to watch any of the spinning of who performed and how they performed. And as you saw in my previous video, I'm disappointed that issues that are important are never really addressed. It's the same old trigger points for both parties. I did not pick a winner. I think they both, Trump could have slammed it. He could have slammed the door, and I would have liked to see something like that. But he wasn't exactly totally coherent either. He didn't go to answering all the questions. I still think he's the better candidate, no doubt. And maybe most of it is just style points. I didn't like the face making all the time. Of course, Biden just looked there, with a pasty faced gaze all around the room, and he knocked and every once in a while woke up and yelled about something, but then he trailed off, forgot where he was, and did all the things that they're accusing him of. Now, in my opinion, we knew that was going to happen. That doesn't mean that Trump won the debate. Trump won the debate. There's no doubt about it. He won if we're trying to pick winners and losers. But nobody addressed any issues. I think the foolish questions, the same old nonsense on the questions aren't what's important. We have issues as a country and nobody is addressing them. Nobody. And you wonder if there's a plan to address them. Nobody's paying attention to any of the BRICS issues. Nobody's talking about the loss of the petrodollar. Nobody's talking about really the reasons behind the war in Ukraine and the colonization forces of America. Those things are not being addressed. And they really should be. The military-industrial complex that runs the planet is still running the planet, and nobody, Trump included, doesn't have any realistic plan to deal with it. He's a little tougher on it than Biden, for sure. Biden's right in the middle of it. But nobody comes flat out and says it, what we're doing. They make up things, and if you don't know this, you really need better experts on Russia, on the collapse of the Soviet Union, on all of the things that went along with it. People like Colonel McGregor, people like, Scott Ritter, that I worked in the same agency as he did for a long time. I was an interpreter and escort division. He was in the inspection division and I did inspections too, but much less frequently. And most of mine was in the escort division, where they would verify our activities in the United States related to the INF Treaty and the Nuclear Threshold Test Ban Treaty. And the U.S. threw those treaties away. The U.S. expanded NATO all the way through Eastern Europe, did things they swore they wouldn't do. And not enough people are talking about that. Not enough people are interested in that, because they really should be if they're not. And your experts are definitely not experts. Your experts are in the same boat as the money-grubbing arms dealers that are selling arms. And that's all they want to do, is make sure that the U.S. continues to be able to sell arms and jump to the next war. Has there been a period in this last 30 years where the United States hasn't been at war with somebody, hasn't been involved in a conflict somewhere to keep the money rolling for these boneheads? That is what needs to be dealt with. And this debate did nothing about any of that. Just general, Ukraine should win. Why? Because Putin wants to take over the world. That's not true. And anybody that knows Putin, anybody that knows anything and isn't lying to you, knows that that is the case. And for them to continue to pump this BS story everywhere that Putin wants to take over the world. I'm not claiming he's a good guy. I'm not, what do you call it, a puppet for Putin. But I listened to him. If you guys, if anybody had listened to him for 30 years, we wouldn't be where we are today. If anyone had did anything other than plan to expand the U.S. into Russia and take over everything in Russia because they're backwards, because they're too proud for this. They're too proud to let this go on. And I'm surprised that Ukrainians aren't more proud. They're good people, for the most part. They have their share of Nazis too, but they're good people. For the vast majority of them are good people. They just have a crappy government. It seems to be going around, unfortunately. And when are we going to talk about the government corruption on our side? When are we ever going to do that? Never. We're just going to let it keep on going. I hope you find this interesting. And I am nobody. I mean, seriously, who am I? I'm nobody. And I just happen to speak Russian fluently, and I happen to listen to a lot of what is said around the world. And people who listen can tell you a hell of a lot more than people who have their own agenda and do all of the talking. And if you look around in both parties in our country, in America today, this is really sad, but the most sane candidate out there who can never get elected is Kennedy. He's talking about the issues that are important, but you can't vote for him because he can't win. What are we stuck with? Why don't the Democrats replace Biden with him? That might be a better plan. The guy's smarter. Hell, if anybody had a brain at all or strategic thinking, they would put Trump and Kennedy together. Have the president be from one party. Maybe we need a restructure of our entire government. Something has to happen to stop this corruption. I mean, even the Supreme Court, look at them. They're a joke too. And I know they're a joke because I've gone to the Supreme Court and they don't even read your case. They don't read it. Some clerk reads it. They have a 1,200 a session, 1,200 twice a year, or is it? It could be a year. I'm not sure of the numbers. I haven't looked at it in a while. But they take less than 6%, and they only take the political ones. You can believe what you like, and you can believe our legal system is not corrupt, but the problem is the legal system is corrupt. And we're seeing that right now. You see it completely everywhere. The ability to weaponize the government against your opponents. That continues. Trump did say he was going to make sure that some things happened. You know what? Years ago, it used to be, you know what? We let that go. We're going to get rid of it. Somebody ought to pardon him and say, if Biden said, for example, you know what? Let's have this be a straight up fight. I'm going to pardon him for any of those things because that shouldn't be happening, that our government is weaponizing ourselves. You can't do it because then it'd be a fair fight. And if you had a fair fight against these two guys, even in an unfair fight, Trump's going to win because nobody can come up with an alternative. The Democrats are swinging hard trying to find one now, and they've come unglued. And I expected some kind of a surprise last night. In fact, I posted it on my Russian side of the channel. I posted it the day before. Said I expected some kind of a big news. There's been talk that a Russian counterpart in the military came to the Pentagon to meet with Austin. That was talk on the eastern side in a Russian channel that I watched. They said that a plane left Moscow for Washington the day before the debate, and that it was after Lloyd Austin's phone call for the first time in 15, 16 months to his counterpart in Russia. And right after that, somebody went. And allegedly, it's to discuss the capitulation, or one of the likely scenarios is to discuss the capitulation of Ukraine, which needs to happen. And the CNN people asking these questions last night did say at one point, well, Mr. Trump, would you let Putin have the areas that he's taken? Well, an open and honest discussion of what's going on over there. We started that. There was a referendum. Whether you like the fair or not fair, there was a referendum. And that referendum back in 2014 picked Russia. A lot of those places, Kherson, Zaporizhzhny, Donetsk, Lugansk, they all picked, just like in Crimea. Now, Crimea was a little bit different because Russia definitely intended to take that, and that was historic Russian lands, and they weren't going to put up with it anymore because that's the Black Sea port. It's always been Sevastopol. Those places have always been Russia. And I don't know who would think that Russia is going to just walk away and let that go, and let NATO have those. It's not going to happen. And so it's interesting to me that the sane people, I try to count myself among them, the sane people are completely ignored, completely, and they're poo-pooed, and they're completely bashed as Putin apologists, Putin supporters. Well, I got news for you, America. Look around you. The guy is completely sane, and he's doing what he thinks is best for his country. Sometimes it's tough. Sometimes it's downright harsh. But what do we have? On the other hand, we've got a corrupt government. You think we're any different than they are? You think our lifetime politicians are any different than he is about his own country? I tell you what, you want to get rid of Putin so bad. Why? He's been there 25 years leading the country. How about 60 years, Joe Biden doing the same old nothing for years? I could go on this topic for an entire day. I don't plan to, because I'm going to do it again in Russian. I'm going to put out something similar in Russian. And I really think that it's way past time for Americans to wake up. If anybody pays attention to this, that would be great. If you don't, that's okay. I'm going to have my say anyway. And you know, I'm nobody important. I'm just a plain old American, would say American Joe, but nobody wants that name right now. I'm an American Sam. How about that? And I'm happy to discuss these issues with anyone, but seems like nobody's interested. The real issues that come up, nobody's ever interested in them, and it's a little bit depressing. All we cared about are the hot button items. Immigration. You know what? I don't support what we're doing for immigration right now. I don't support the open borders, but immigration helped build this country. If we had a fair and reasonable process for people to come here, and not the shit show that we have right now at our borders, I'd support it. I'd support variety in America is a good spice to life, and it needs to continue. And our country was founded on that, on a lot of that basis. You know, initially it was whites against, and I get that, but we're not against the melting pot. There were people from all over the place, mostly white, but they came from all over the place, and the variety is a good thing. And it helps America develop, and we want these things. I want them. I appreciate different cultures. I want different cultures, but you don't go destroy another culture because they disagree with you. That's the same thing we accused the British of. It's, you know, when they were colonializing the world, and we fought back, and we were the first successful. Where's England now? They controlled the world. Where are they? We're doing the exact same thing that they did, and people don't necessarily realize it. Why do we have military bases everywhere? Why? We don't need them. There is no reason to have them all. It'd be nice to have a peaceful world. I even think it'd be nice to have some kind of a world order, but that world order shouldn't be dominated by one party, especially a minority party. And that's the thing that people need to wake up and understand, is that the rest of the world, you've heard this before, Trump said it last night, we're a laughing stock in the rest of the world. And I don't necessarily agree with it being that bad. Biden is a laughing stock in the rest of the world. That's true. But the rest of the world is totally against our colonization, our dollar, forcing our democracy, if you want to call what we do democracy, forcing it on people, and they're against holding economies hostage. People like India, China, Russia are taking the opposite stance. BRICS is creating a comparable to the International Monetary Fund and U.S. Aid for International Development, that joke, if they could create something different, because all that group does is go in and buy countries, Moldova, Ukraine, Bulgaria, all over Eastern Europe and Africa. We're being booted out of those places, and people don't get it. These are big picture items, and there are people who know far more than me on this topic, but I know enough to know that we need to change what we are doing, and we're not doing it. We have the same old idiots doing the same old political posturing in Washington because we won't get rid of them. The biggest problems facing the world are those I've already outlined. And the biggest problems facing America is a corrupt government. And if you do one thing, limit the amount of time that people can spend in government, and maybe we have a shot. If you can get rid of those people like Joe Biden, who sit up there for 60 years, contribute nothing. We don't need expert politicians. We don't need them. What we need are expert leaders and a future generation. All the Democrats are going crazy right now because who do they have? They have nobody. Who are they going to shoehorn in to Joe Biden's spot when he, gets shuffled off to the old folks' home pretty quickly, probably at the convention. Whatever surprises they got up their sleeves, they haven't let out of the bag yet, but I fully anticipated one to be coming. I appreciate you listening. Hope you enjoyed it. I give lots of commentary, mostly in Russian, and try to state things, call them as I see them. And I'm no genius, but I do know quite a bit. And I think it's long past time to put term limits across the board everywhere. There's no reason a judge should be appointed for life. There's no reason that anybody should serve America for longer than, call it 30 years, some day, whatever that is, some period of time that it should be. And that period of time needs to be shorter. My thought process would be 20 years. If you can't help the government in 20 years, get out. And that's any position. If you just want to be a general worker on a job up to the level of manager, something like that, fine. But director and up, they ought to be limited. So those people, you don't end up with Fauci's. You don't end up with Joe Biden. In any government, any federal government service, you want to do it on the state level, great, go ahead. But we should term limit everybody. How many years has Nancy Pelosi been there? Over 80. She's over 80 years old. Biden's been there his whole life, and he's very proud of it. And we shouldn't be proud of that. We should be disgusted by that. We should be disgusted by people like Mitch McConnell. And I am, frankly, I'm disgusted by all of them. They are as useless as, like my law partner always used to say, useless as tits on a bull. Well, that's probably rude, but certainly fits. A politician is of no use to anyone, and they're only in it for themselves. Maybe they think they can change things when they get in there. The first term, the second term, they realize, maybe not, but they spend the whole first term trying to get a second term, and then they get comfortable in where they sit, and they just sit around and do nothing, like Joe Biden, and push things back and delay things and hold that power, because that's the only thing that matters. And as Americans, we should be disgusted. We should have a constitutional amendment that somebody puts out somewhere and says no person in a federal spot over manager level, so director and up, pay them a full retirement. I don't care, it's cheaper. It'd be far cheaper to pay them a full retirement after 20 years and get rid of them and make room for new people. with very, very limited exceptions. We limit the president. Why? They say it's because of things like Putin, but they don't limit anybody else. Same old idiots are running the same old thing. Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, but somebody should think about it. Somebody should think about these things. We as Americans should insist upon it because, in my view, the biggest problem in our country today is corruption. Governmental corruption at all levels. Most of it because of the length of time you spend in your position. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be able to go from manager to director and to whatever, but totally, once you hit director, once you hit some level up, G15 or whatever those numbers are that they have pay scales, once you hit a certain level of that pay step, whoosh, you're gone. And after 20 years, 30 years, whatever it is, there should be some limit. Or you end up with people like Biden standing on stage looking like a moron and unable to formulate a coherent sentence. I hope that when that happens to me, and I won't be on the public stage unless my YouTube channel grows a hell of a lot more than it has. And if I'm incoherent, I hope that somebody leads me off the stage, exit stage right, and gets me out of there so I'm not an embarrassment to myself and my family any more than I have been already in life. So at any rate, I hope you enjoyed my little commentary. You have a very nice day, and watch the rest of my shows. I try to make commentary, and I call it like I see it. Have a good day.